Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It is your Realtor Hugo here with another live. As always, thank you so much for tuning in. This is your space, 15 to 20 minutes a day to learn a little bit more about real estate and how it can impact you and those around you. I am your host, Hugo Quintanilla, your licensed Realtor in Maryland with Long and Foster. Oh, excuse me. Let me turn that off. Golly, I am so sorry about that. Thank you to everyone for tuning in on any platform that you might be viewing us on. For those that don't know, we are on all major platforms: Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn, Twitch, X, uh, Spotify, and YouTube Music. So feel free and share the live with anyone that you know that might be interested on the platform that you'd like. So, again, ladies and gentlemen, if you have any questions, let me know. Today, we're going to be talking about red flags to look for when buying an investment property. And these are just some things that I have noticed in my experience of things that you might want to keep in mind when you're exploring a property. I was going through a couple today, and yeah, I was very much reminded about a few of the old tried and true red flags to look for when it comes to new investment properties. So let's go ahead and check out what I got to share for you guys. Poor location. A property far from public transportation and amenities. If an investment property is a little bit removed from public transportation, that can be okay. A little bit removed. I'm talking about maybe like a 5 minute walk, maybe like a short distance away from a main road. But really, too much more after that, I would not suggest as a good investment, because really, remember that a rental, we want it to be accessible to the most amount of people, and a tenant might not always have a car, so we want to give them that option and that flexibility to be able to take public transportation if need be. And there are great services here in this area. So there are other places in the world where, hey, services might not be great, but here they're actually pretty good. So it's not ideal to use public transportation, but at the end of the day, it is a great source of transportation for a lot of people. And we have a great system in this area. So research the neighborhood crime rates, school ratings, and future development plans so that you can make sure that you're investing in a property location that you're comfortable with looking into the future. And those are all things that I honestly cannot share with you. You have to do your research on those because of fair housing. So make sure that you're doing your due diligence in that regard. Number two, structural issues, cracks in the foundation or water damage. Always get a professional home inspection when you can. Water damage is of concern. Cracks in the foundation are of concern. But is it the end all be all? Absolutely not. There are projects where obviously, you can bring a property back. Do you want to be involved with a property like that? That is the question. Because being involved with a property like that does involve time, money, patience, permitting, inspecting. There are a lot of things that you have to stay on top of. And if you're not ready to do that, it can be highly frustrating. So make sure that you're doing your due diligence when it comes to any structural issues you might find or water damage, because that is not just a simple DIY that you can do over the weekend. You usually have to get permitting, you usually have to get an engineer or someone to come in and help you out to really correct the problem. And the last thing we want is to add more expense to an already expensive process. Number three, high vacancy rates. Many empty homes or apartments in the area may be vacant. Find out exactly why that is. Look at local rental market reports to ensure that there is demand for that particular area. Also, notice if the perhaps maybe the market might be overcooked. In other words, oversaturated. It could be too many properties, or too few properties in affordable price ranges could also be the issue as well. Sometimes the homes are just not affordable to any locals. And that can really be its own issue there, where you have people having to come from out of town to be able to afford some of these rentals. But at the end of the day, the high vacancy rate just shows poor demand, and poor demand results in empty spaces. And that's what we don't want as an investor. Is we want the property to always have tenants going in and out of it as long as possible. Number four, overpriced properties. The property pricing is significantly higher than similar homes in the area. The only way to really combat this is to compare that with recent sale prices and of nearby properties, and to do your research. Work with a realtor that knows the prices of your market so that you're not getting coerced or finagled into spending more money than you have to on a property and then it's worth, which is one of the craziest things. Is don't get roped into spending more money into a property than it's worth. And that's sometimes very hard to establish because of the way some of these deals are. But if it sounds too good to be true, it actually might be too good to be true. Number five, high maintenance costs. Older homes needing constant repair, those are always going to be fixed expenses. You might not necessarily know what expenses could come with an older home, but just keep that in mind that an older property, especially properties in this area that are on the older side, they come with their own extra expenses due to insulation, due to energy efficiency, due to sheer design. There can be any real reason why, but you have to try to calculate as much of these expenses as you can and make sure that that's affordable for you. Because remember, we don't need to just get the loan approved just to get us through the door. We want to make this a feasible everyday thing so that we can pay our monthly mortgage on time and never lose this home, even on our darkest financial weekends. So that's something that is our goal, to set you up to win and not to get set back. Number six, unclear title or ownership issues. Disputes over ownership or unresolved liens. Those are all things to be weary about. Hire a title company to perform a thorough title search, and they will walk you through the process of what it will take to correct the cloud on the title. That is what's known when a property cannot transfer from one person to another. It's a cloud on the title. You want clear and equitable title, meaning that there is no cloud on the title. There is no doubt whatsoever of who owns that property and where that property is going to, because the owner is the one that's selling it. Number seven, poor tenant history. Frequent tenant turnover or evictions. Review rental history and current tenant leases to get a gauge of what's happening in the area, especially if the property has been leased previously, or if you're purchasing a property that has a tenant inside. Be very weary. What is happening with that tenant? Why is that tenant being sold as is? And what is really happening here? Because having a tenant inside your property already, as the owner of the property, comes with its own set of rules and responsibilities. And these are all things that you need to figure out. Who is this person? Why are they here? Who are they paying rent to? And how long are they going to be paying that rent for? All things that need to be established. And let alone the fact that this person doesn't even know who you are and you just now own their home. That's its own series of very poor questions. Number eight, unusual zoning restrictions or regulations. Restrictions to prevent certain types of improvements. For example, if you wanted to maybe improve the home um, and there's an HOA and it doesn't let you do like a garage that you like, or change the outside and paint it into a different color. Those are all reasons why you don't want to be involved in those areas. Check with local zoning offices to understand the regulations of what you can do in your zone, and also where other zones are that you can use in case you did want to maybe expand out a business or do some sort of other renovation to a property, and find out where that's allowed. Number nine, environmental concerns. Properties located in flood zones or contaminated areas. Research environmental hazards and consider getting environmental assessments, especially if there's a substantial amount of nature in your property. A lot of people neglect how much properties are protected nowadays. So even removing trees can be a problem. So make sure that you are aware of the preservation efforts of wildlife, and if there's a flood zone, and if it's a potential flood zone, because there's a lot of people that historically have never had a flood zone, but now with global warming are seeing themselves wetter than ever when it comes to these tropical storms that we're seeing fly by. So make sure that you are getting the proper insurance for your property, especially as it's being updated with new flood zones and flood plans as the world inevitably changes and adapts to newer temperatures. Number 10, the last one for this evening, unrealistic promises from the seller. Again, talking about that, seems too good to be true theory. Guarantees of high returns with little effort. Be skeptical and do your own research on market conditions and property potential. I had an agent just tell me some insane numbers today, and it drains the life out of me sometimes because it's like, who do you think you're lying to? Because everyone can see the math. Like, it's what you're saying is not accurate. But I'm sure, for someone that doesn't know the math, I'm it's tempting. It's very tempting, and it sounds so good to be true that it's just wow. But that's why you work with a real estate professional, trying to make sure that you're aware of what could happen with some of these follies, exactly why it seems a little too good to be true, why precisely, maybe this property is not the most ideal for you. So not every property is meant for you. Make sure that you're doing your homework and discerning which properties are the best for you. Sometimes it takes longer to find your right property, so don't rush into it. It's worth the wait. And again, if you have any questions about real estate, feel free and reach out. Today, we were talking about red flags to look for when buying an investment property, whether it's the first one or the fifth, sixth, or 12th one. These are some of the red flags that I usually look for. Number one was poor location. Number two was structural issues. Number three was high vacancy rate. Number four is overpriced property. Number five, high maintenance costs. Number six is unclear title or home ownership issues. Number seven, poor tenant history. Number eight, unusual zoning restrictions. Number nine, environmental concerns. And number 10, unrealistic promises from the seller. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for tuning in to another live. I am Hugo Quintanilla, your realtor Hugo online, licensed with Long and Foster. Feel free and reach out whenever possible. My phone number 240-389-4846. My email is hugo@lnf.com, and my website is yourrealtorhugo.com. And ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for always tuning in and being part of this whole experience. I'm going to take a little water break, and then we will get back on here and do a quick live on mental health. What's the topic? Who knows? You're going to have to tune in. So I'll see you in a few minutes, okay? Take care.